takes 500,000 ounces of silver for 1 gigawatt of solar. 380 gigawatts was what was added last year.
Wow.
So that's roughly 180, 190 million ounces of silver just for solar.
And that's about 10 times your output.
Yeah.
Right, that's fascinating. But you don't hear about silver as a strategic metal very much.
Connection established.
This week's specials at Miles Franklin are 1 ounce silver maples, $3.39 over spot. 1 ounce palladium bars, $119 over spot. Gold, Queen Elizabeth Sovereigns, $26.99 over melt, plus a massive inventory, all great prices. Email me or call me, slayer@milesfranklin.com. I will hook you up. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you stack silver and you want to be updated on a daily basis of the newest, latest, most up-to-date information in the world of precious metals, well, you've come to the right place, especially since 2 of you will be winning a lot of silver shipped straight to your front doorstep for free just by clicking subscribe, and I will be announcing the 2 winners as I'm jumping out of an airplane, skydiving in celebration of 100,000 subscribers. Do not miss it. It's going to be a crazy sight to see. I'll have a GoPro attached so you guys can watch me fall while you guys celebrate potentially winning some silver, and like always, may the luckiest stackers win. Now, we're going to be diving into a Bloomberg interview with the CEO of Hecla Mining, which is Phillips Baker. Last time I covered an interview with Phillips Baker was the Silver Institute's seminar of silver's role in the green economy, which was very controversial as some of the things he was saying was extremely contradicting, especially since Keith Neumeyer, the CEO of First Majestic Silver, another huge silver miner, was saying polar opposites of we don't have enough silver to go green, where Phillips Baker was saying we do. But regardless, that's not the point of this interview. He is mentioning how demand is going to be growing for solar power in the near future and what that's going to look like. So I want to see what's happening. He says, and this is the title, Hecla Mining CEO says solar is a game changer for silver.
Kicking us off, Phillips Baker. He is president and CEO of Hecla Mining. It's great to see you.
Great to be here with you, Andrew.
You told me an amazing figure earlier. How much of American silver production do you account for?
Well, Hecla Mining mines half of all the silver that's mined in the United States.
That's
half.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Where would you fit in the world of silver miners?
Oh, in the world, we're probably in the top 20. But when you say silver miners, most silver is a byproduct.
Sure.
So you've got the big Polish copper company that's the actual largest producer of silver, but that's only about 50 million ounces of silver. It's actually quite small. There's nobody that has a big percentage.
And your production this year will be how much silver?
Probably 16, 17 million ounces, and that's a big growth over, last year we were 14, and a few years before that we were 10. So we've had a lot of growth, and we'll continue to grow. We should get to 20 in the next couple of years.
You have a helpful map here. So your biggest mine currently, Greens Creek in Alaska.
World's 11th largest silver mine.
Then you're developing Keno Hill in the Yukon in Canada. This is your gold play, Casa Berardi over in Val-d'Or. And then Lucky Friday in Idaho.
Correct.
Yeah. I guess Lucky Friday, obviously bitter irony, you had a fire there.
Well, we did, and someone said, well, should it be called Lucky Friday? And any mine that's been in existence 82 years is very lucky.
Right.
So yes, we were down for about 5 months. We went back into production at the beginning of January. And we should be at full production by the end of the quarter.
And here's a picture of Lucky Friday. And what went on fire, and how far down was it?
Well, it was a mile underground, and we have a wood-lined shaft that was constructed in 1960.
Wow.
And it is only our secondary escape way and ventilation. And what happened was, we don't know for sure, but we think there was an exothermic reaction of material that you put in to stabilize the ground. It's a foam. And there was so much of this material that it can retain the heat, and it got hot enough to actually ignite the wood in that shaft. Fortunately, it was just a very small portion of the shaft that burnt. We were able to abandon that.
Have been rising at Greens Creek. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's costs sort of ebb and flow with the base metals, because it is actually one of the largest zinc producers, certainly third largest zinc producer in the United States.
Oh, so you book the credits.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's not the actual mining
Yeah,
cost
no, the actual total costs have been pretty stable last year and what we expect this year. If you go back the year before, there was inflationary pressure, but it seemed to have abated last year.
Casa Berardi is your gold asset, as I said, and you like it because it's kind of stabilizes the cash flow. But does that not cut the valuation on your stock if you're not a pure silver play?
There is no such thing as a pure silver play, so no.
Right.
You know, what's really important is the quality of the assets that we have. These are all very long-lived assets. All of them probably will operate for at least another 20 years. They're all very low cost. You know, they're growing, and they provide really the opportunity to innovate, and so we continually find ways of making these better assets.
Now, you reckon about half of the world's silver production goes for industrial uses.
That's right, yeah.
And of that, how much would be solar panels?
It's about a quarter of that, so roughly 15, a little more than a quarter, roughly 15% of total demand is going to solar today, and that is quite an increase. It was single digits just 2 or 3 years ago, so it has completely changed. It takes 500,000 ounces of silver for 1 gigawatt of solar. 380 gigawatts was what was added last year.
Wow.
So that's roughly 180, 190 million ounces of silver just for solar.
And that's about 10 times your output.
Yeah.
Right, that's fascinating. But you don't hear about silver as a strategic metal very much.
Yeah, no, and there's a consideration that the Canadian government is doing, and we certainly are engaged with other governments, but the Canadian government seems to be taking the lead.
I thought this was very interesting, very telling. Remember, he said just a couple of years ago, he's producing 10 million ounces annually, 13, 14 million ounces nowadays. But the demand is 1.2 billion. Think of that. The largest silver miner in America produces 13, 14 million ounces, but a demand exceeding 1.2 billion ounces. Think about that for a second. And then think about what he said with the 1 gigawatt needing 500,000 ounces of silver, but solar has risen to over 380 gigawatts, which is 10 times his output itself. And the silver is a byproduct found by gold, lead, and zinc. But also, not only this, Mexico actually is the largest producer. They accumulate around half of the entire world's silver, but their output for the last year has actually dramatically decreased at alarming rates. If you see a chart, it is staggering, but incorporate that with a record-breaking supply or demand. So you have this diminishing supply with this skyrocketing demand, which isn't going to stop anytime soon, and then you see why these record-breaking supply deficits aren't going to be stopping, right? The last 2 years we had record-breaking supply deficits. They predict this year will be, and the next year is going to be as well, then the year after that, and the year after that. And by that time, we're so deep in the hole that even if we started breaking even, we're still hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions of ounces in the red. So to catch up, we would need hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions of ounces in the green. But that's just simply not possible. If demand is 1.2 billion, some predicting up to 1.4 billion, especially not even including military and aerospace in these numbers, which means it's even worse than that. Where are we going to get that from? Annual production's 850 million ounces on the good year. Most silver's thrown away. It's a byproduct found by accident. What is this going to lead to? What it's going to lead to is higher silver prices. One of the first things you learn in investing is low supply, high demand pushes the price up. If something is scarce, that gives it value. If something like the dollar is oversaturated, it makes it worthless. So just you're hearing it from him himself. And another person who you should really take note of is Keith Neumeyer, which is the CEO of First Majestic Silver, which is also one of the biggest silver miners in America, also only produces around 10 million ounces per year. 10 million ounces per year, with demand up to one point in the billions, right? But he says there's no way we have enough silver to go green, right? He's very, very open about it. Phillips Baker, he isn't as much. He's more optimistic, but even though he will say that we do have enough in these reserves, he will go on for another 10 minutes in the interview from the Silver's Role in the Green Economy that I showed last time from that the Silver Institute held, goes on for 10 minutes right after saying that, how it's not possible. And just like you mentioned, just like he mentioned in this Bloomberg interview, the reality of that's very slim. And then he still goes on to then talk about how nobody's even noticing or even mentioning that silver is a strategic metal that's extremely scarce, right? Canada is finally taking note of it, but that's only because people broke out and had them revise Silver Institute's numbers, and people were writing letters to Canada and changing it. They had 50 minerals on this sheet of critical minerals that are going to become extinct, that are in extreme scarcity. But silver's not on the list, even though silver is the most important and probably the most scarce of them all, that we need the most. Why? They're purposely leaving silver off. They don't want the silver shortage's true nature to be exposed to certain extents, because then that would in return show silver's true value, how valuable it truly is. Now, I've been exposing the silver shortage for many years now, and it is starting to become more mainstream, but I still don't think it's hit big tech yet. People like Elon Musk, he better know, and yes, he did. He's buying his own silver mine. Why try to find a source where you have to middleman, pay premiums probably, and try to, or pray to God that they have enough or they can keep up with the amount, since we haven't even gone into electric vehicles, right? He's the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Both require silver. Solar City, that's silver. Photovoltaic cells, PV cells, solar panels, that's silver. But then think about trying to compete with others. Even with the U.S. Mint having this problem, right? They can't even find enough silver to get their silver planchets to make coins. That's why they've been running out of eagles the last 3-4 years now. But at the end of the day, the whole point is this. Silver is becoming extremely scarce. A lot of people aren't acknowledging it. I don't know if it's purposely or there's something going on behind the scenes, like some are saying, especially with all the accusations from the Silver Institute by the Silver Academy. But this stuff is real, and that's why I try to share this. Is when I'm talking about these numbers not adding up or how unrealistic it is, how unrealistic trying to go green is, or this Green New Deal, it's not possible. And once there's going to be a breaking point, especially given the corruption and manipulation and the number of paper contracts, compared to the amount of physical silver there is out there. And once that becomes, once that facade becomes exposed, or once that starts to shut down, silver's true value will start to shine. Silver is extremely valuable. It has real world uses. So to think an ounce of silver, right? Remember that he said 500,000 ounces for 1 gigawatt, but we need hundreds upon hundreds of gigawatts. 1 ounce, think about this. 1 ounce costs $24. But think about how useful that ounce is, especially with the massive shortage. But then think of something like gold. Why is gold 90 times more valuable than silver when gold just sits around on people's necks and people's watches? It's for necklaces and earrings and watches and bars and jewelry and coins. Why is gold 90 times more valuable? There's not that much gold in electronics and industry. Silver is. So there's an extreme undervaluation here, a manipulated, rigged price, and it will get exposed soon. So once you start to see silver's true value, not looking at it in dollar terms and not looking at it even comparing it to gold, because that's still looking at it from the wrong light, since silver has a completely different use than gold does, then you'll start to see how valuable silver truly is and the potential it truly can have. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Remember, folks, I post daily videos. I also have, I have some deals for you guys. You saw in the beginning of the video, Maple is $339 over spot. Huge inventory. Also, if you guys wanted a chance to win free silver, then just make sure you go click subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the entry video as we approach 100,000 subscribers. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.